Amul, resource person has joined. Kindly make him a co-host.
Okay, sir.
So all. A very good afternoon to one and all. Respected resource person for this afternoon session of this second week of NEP orientation and sensitization program, 25th NEP program, being organized by UGC Malviya Mission Teachers Training Center, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. I welcome today's guest, Professor Tripathi sir. Before going to a formal introduction of the resource person, I will request all the participants to open the camera. सभी सहभागी मित्र अपना कैमरा ओपन करें to have a formal interaction with the resource person. I will request all participants to open the camera, please. Thank you. Friends, the resource person, Professor T.Tripathi sir, working in Department of Zoology. His academic qualification, he has obtained his PhD from JNU, New Delhi, MSc from University of Mysore and BSc from University of Allahabad. Has a vast teaching and research experience of more than 90 years. His research specialization includes molecular biology, biochemistry, biophysics. His research area focus on protein folding, dynamic and interaction, then protein aggregation, liquid-liquid phase separation, and biomolecular condensation. Also, he has publication around 105 in which textbook he has authored two, edited book 6, book chapter 21, 20 in English, one in Hindi, a total impact factor of 488.078. Total citations are 3,400 plus. H index is 32, I-10 index is 71. Under his able guidance, he have 76 students have been awarded PhD, and he has also guided for the projects of MSc and MTech to more than 33 students. Also, research project as a principal investigator, he has completed 11 and as a co-principal investigator 3. You see that Professor Tripathi sir, professor in molecular biology in School of Life Science, Nehu, Shillong. Earlier, he has served as a regional director of IGNO, Kohima, Nagaland, where he has contributed significantly to education, leadership, governance, management. Before assuming this administrative position, he was a assistant professor and principal investigator at Department of Biochemistry, Nehu, Shillong. He holds a PhD from JNU, New Delhi, while working at the Central Drug Institute, Lucknow. He was a visiting faculty at ICGEB, New Delhi, India, and Konkan University, Thailand. His research interests lie in the field of protein substrate interaction, dynamic, and understanding the role of non-catalytic domains in regulating the catalytic activity of protein. He has received several awards Professor B.K. Bachwat Memorial Young Scientist Lecture Award in the year 2020 by National Academy of Science. Also ISCB Young Scientist Award, and also Dr. D.M. Bose Award 2008. Also, he has an honor of as a working as senior editor of Critical Insight into Biophysics of Taylor Francis UK 2024 onwards, and editor of International Journal of Biological Molecules elsewhere USA. Also, he has been associated as an elected member for National Academy of Science, Royal Society of Chemistry, London, UK, then Royal Society of Biology, London, UK. Uh, so it is really an honor and pleasure for all of us to have him here as a resource person. So again, I welcome him and I will now hand over the session to Professor Tripathi, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul, for the kind introduction. I will share my slides and then uh, let us see. So, share. Allow. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you see the transition?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Good. Thank you. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Abdul, for inviting me to give this talk. Today, what I will be talking about is Indian knowledge system that we say as Bharati Gyan Parampara. And what will I do is I will be talking about more of the perspective related with science. What was the thought process of the Western people about science and research, and what was the thought process was of the Indian science at earlier era. So many people think that the knowledge it was generated in the West, and from there it came to different part of the world. So this view often makes people believe that there was no scientific advancement or technological knowledge in the East. So we started following the West. So sadly, this ignores the fact that India has a very strong tradition of science, and this lack of awareness has made many doubt in today's scientific world in the Indian children. However, at the same time, if you see in the earlier 20th century, uh, Indian scientists like Acharya Praful Chandra, Brigadier Seal, Jagdish Chandra Bose, and others, they showed how research in India was done as a leader not only in religious philosophy but also in science and technology. So our ancestors combined science with spirituality, and they ensured that the scientific progress benefited all living beings. Now, with the advent of National Education Policy 2020, people are beginning to understand the value of this approach. Many authors have also written book about Indian science, like Professor Praful Chand Ray's book is there on the Hindu chemistry. Brajendra Seal's book is there, The Positive Sciences of the Ancient Hindus. There was Raja Sahab Vajay's book is there. So there are many good scientists who have written, who have worked on our ancient culture, and they have written good books. So what I will do today is my lecture will be there. We will have two parts of the lecture. In the first part, we will discuss about the philosophical foundations, the perspective of West, and compare that to the East of India, and then certain contribution of certain scientists to science. Okay, so this photo, this is a sculpture. Have any one of you have seen this picture earlier?
Sir, participants are muted because it creates a disturbance.
Okay,
So
okay,
they
fine,
can
fine.
text you in the message box. Huh?
Yes, that
Participant
will
can
be
message.
good. So if you can, if any of you can remember, this is actually the sculpture of Shushrut, the author of Shushrut Samhita and the founder of surgery. And this sculpture is placed at the entry gate of Royal Australian College of Surgeon in Melbourne in US. What I mean to say is, even the West, even those Australia people have accepted that father of surgery is Shushrut, and they believe it. And they have installed a sculpture of Shushrut at the gate of their institute. But we have failed to do so. Let us see one by one how things has traveled. So what was the view of the West towards logic and towards experiment? So experimental science is often thought to emerge in the West about 450 years, 60 years back, say around year 1500 to 1600, in between that, with Galileo. So before him, there was Copernicus. Copernicus already established the idea that the sun is stationary and the earth revolves around the sun. But however, when we look at the mindset of the society during that time, we see that there was a huge influence of Aristotle. So people often look to Aristotle for answer to any difficult question. So whatever Aristotle used to write in his book, that was considered to be correct. So there is an interesting story that illustrates this fact. So there was a group of scholars in London. They were once debating how many teeth does a horse has. So each scholar was giving a different answer. So they were unable to get agree, and one of them suggested to go and check in the library what Aristotle has written on this subject. So one scholar went off to the library and find Aristotle's work. Another young man just left the room. When he returned, everyone was surprised. He brought one horse with him. He simply said, "Why to bother Aristotle? The horse is right here. Let's count its teeth." So for everything, people used to believe Aristotle, and whatever Aristotle has written, they used to believe that it is right. So before Aristotle, before Galileo, the common belief was, the widespread belief was that the heavier object, it fall faster. This was as per Aristotle. So because Aristotle in his book, he has written, if you take a 10-pound stone and you take a 1-pound stone and you throw it, 10-pound stone will fall 10 times faster. So Galileo challenged this belief, and he suggested that if the resistance of the air is ignored, both objects will fall at the same rate. So the public was shocked when Galileo claimed this, and even some people asked him to prove it. And even some people said that, do you think that you are smarter than Aristotle? So what he did was, Galileo called the crowd near the Tower of Pisa and did an experiment. He dropped 1 pound of stone and 10 pound of stone at the same time. And everyone was amazed to see that both the stone hit the ground together. Now, interestingly, instead of believing what they saw, many of the people claim that Galileo must have used some black magic, because they were very convinced that Aristotle could not be wrong. This shows the mindset of people in Europe just 450 years back. So their mindset was very rigid. Another story, the British, who used to consider themselves as very smart and intelligent, they have never seen cotton until they came to India. So they have not seen cotton plant or fibers or threads. All they knew was wool from sheep. So when they came to India and they saw cotton, they used to say Indians were very clever. They can grow wool on plants and they can weave cloth from it. So this speaks volume about the attitude of European towards experimentation, towards knowledge at that time. It is correct that in the last 150 years, the West has made incredible progress in science and technology. But what was the society before that? Say before that, 300, 400 years back, what was society? So if we see that, if we glance into the history, we see what is the mentality of Europe it was like for 1500 years, Europe, before Galileo, Europe was completely dominated by Aristotle's idea. So in 139 AD, there was a philosopher, Claudius Ptolemy. So he was influenced by Aristotle, and he introduced the Earth-centric model, that which claimed that Earth was at the center of the universe and sun revolves around it. So the church, it supported this idea, and it remained the accepted belief for centuries. However, in 1543, Copernicus, he was a Polish astronomer. He was from Poland. He challenged Ptolemy's theory, and he proposed that the sun was at the center of the universe and Earth revolved around it. So, although this started at the beginning of modern Western science, but the church banned him, and Copernicus even died before his theory was published. Similarly, Galileo, he used a telescope and he confirmed the Copernicus theory, that heliocentric theory. And but the supporters of Ptolemy and Aristotle, they viewed the use of a telescope as blasphemous. So the religious leaders, they declared that accepting the theory of Copernicus was against the written scripture. And they even forced Galileo to apologize in public. And they forbidden him to work further. He was placed in the house arrest and he was persecuted. He wrote a book on physics at the time of persecution, but he became blind before it was published, and he died in his house under house arrest in the 1640s something. There was another scientist, Tycho Brahe. So Copernicus theory was also supported by Tycho Brahe. He was a Danish astronomer, and he was an expert of metallurgy and mathematics. So Brahe, what he did, he was able to identify 750 stars without the use of telescope. Now, he was the first person who said that there can be many worlds like Earth. Now, the church even got very angry, and Brahe was imprisoned. And even after that, he refused to recant his belief. He was burnt at the stake in 1600 year. So how rigid they was. Johannes Kepler, he was a German astronomer. He was an associate of Brahe. So he was a student of Brahe. So Kepler, in detail, he studied the planetary motion, and it led him to formulate laws of on the position and the movement of planets. Again, his ideas were considered hysterical, and he was pursued by the church, and constantly he was fleeing, and Kepler died in poverty and sickness several years later. So what does all these show? What I want to show is these stories shows the fact that people who challenged established idea or who proposed new ideas, they were persecuted, they were imprisoned, or they were even killed. So these illustrate the resistance of the people of the West towards logic, towards experimentation just a few hundred years back. So now what was the mindset of Indian approach and logic towards experimentation? So for thousands of years, India has completely enjoyed freedom of education and intellectual thought. No one has ever been imprisoned or persecuted for their beliefs. Say there was a materialist philosopher, Charvak, Rishi Charvak. So he openly used to criticize Vedas.
Sir, your screen is not visible. Just a minute, I will call the resource person. I think that he got disconnected.
Yes, sir. You are the co-host. You can share the our screen.
Okay, so you have to tell me which slide I was. Just a second. Did we? You are here.
Yes, sir. You are properly audible, sir.
This one. These two slides.
No, sir. Your our screen not visible.
Okay. Okay. Just a second.
Yes. Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So can you tell me which slide we were?
Signification of progress. Yes. This, sir.
This one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we
This
have
one. This one
completed
is.
this one, no?
Yes.
Did we completed this one?
Previous slides. Previous.
This one?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what I was talking about, the views of the West towards logic and experiments, and how the West used to think about logic. So before, I think from this slide I should start, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So before Galileo, the widespread belief was that the heavier object, it falls faster, because Aristotle has written so. Aristotle, he claimed that if you take, there are two stones, 1 pound and 10 pound, the 10-pound stone will fall faster than the 1-pound stone. So Galileo, he challenged this idea and he suggested that if air's resistance is ignored, both objects will fall at the same rate. So the public was shocked when Galileo claimed that he can even prove this. And some of the public even asked that he thought he was smarter than Aristotle or what. So he called the people together at near the Tower of Pisa, and he asked for an experiment. He took two stones, 1 pound and 10 pound, and then he dropped them from the top of Tower of Pisa in Italy. So everyone was amazed to see that both the stone fell on the ground at the same time. But instead of believing what the people have seen, many of the people, they claimed that Galileo must have used some black magic, because they were completely convinced that Aristotle cannot be wrong. This shows the mindset of people in Europe around just 450 years back. The British, say for example, who are considered very intelligent, they have never seen cotton until they came to India. So they were unfamiliar with cotton, cloth, plant, and fibers and so on. All they knew was wool from sheep. So they used to say that Indians are very clever because they can grow wool on plants and they can weave cloth from it. This speaks volumes about the attitude of Europeans towards experimentation at that time. It is correct that Europe has made incredible progress in science and technology in the last 150 years or so. But what was the society before that? So, for about 1500 years before Galileo, Europe was completely dominated by the ideas of Aristotle. So, there was a scientist philosopher called Claudius Ptolemy. He was influenced by the ideas of Aristotle, and he introduced Earth-centric model, which claimed that Earth is at the center of universe and sun rotates around it. The church, it supported this idea, and it remained the accepted belief for centuries. However, in 1543, Copernicus, he was a Polish astronomer from Poland. He challenged Ptolemy's theory by proposing that sun was actually at the center and Earth used to revolve around it. Although this marked the beginning of modern Western science, Copernicus, in fact, died before his theory was published. And even when it was eventually published, the church banned his theory because it was not according to their belief. Galileo, he used telescope and he confirmed the Copernicus theory. But the supporters of Ptolemy, they said that the use of telescope is blasphemous. And the religious leaders, they say that Copernicus theory was against the scripture, against the book. And they forced Galileo to apologize. They forbade him from doing further work. He was placed under house arrest. He was persecuted, and he wrote a book on physics when he was at house arrest. Ultimately, he became blind, and he died also under house arrest in 1642. So there was another scientist, Tycho Brahe. He was a Danish astronomer. He was an expert of mathematics. Brahe identified more than 750 stars without the help of a telescope. He was the first person to argue that the Earth may not be the only world. There can be many other worlds like Earth. So now this angered the church. And Brahe was imprisoned for 8 years, and after refusing to recant his belief, he was burnt at stake. Similarly, there was Johannes Kepler. He was a German astronomer. He was an associate. He was a student of Brahe. He did detailed study of planetary motion, and which led him to formulate laws on the position and movement of planet. Now, his ideas were also considered hysterical. He was also pursued and he was constantly fleeing, and he died in poverty and sickness in 1630 or so. So these stories show that how people who challenged established ideas, who challenged written scriptures, or who proposed new ideas, they were persecuted, imprisoned, or even killed. So this illustrates the resistance of West people towards logic, towards experiment just a few hundred years back. Now, what was India's approach towards logic and experiment? So for thousands of years, India has complete freedom of education and intellectual thought. No one has ever been imprisoned or persecuted for their belief. Say, for example, there was a materialist philosopher, Rishi Charvak, who openly used to criticize Vedas. He used to say the author of Vedas are hypocrites, they are evildoers, and so on. Despite such harsh views, he was never mistreated. In fact, he was respected as a philosopher. This shows the intellectual freedom that is there in India uh, compared to that of the West. Another example comes from Mundak Upanishad. Mundak Upanishad. There was a Rishi Shonak. He used to head a large Gurukul. So he approached Rishi Angira and asked a question: what is the knowledge of the element that encompass everything? And Rishi Angira said there are two types of knowledge: Paravidya, or metaphysical knowledge, which leads to ultimate truth, and Aparavidya, physical knowledge, which provides worldly and material happiness. Even though the Vedas and their related branches are considered as physical knowledge, Aparavidya, Indian society continued to honor them. This reflects the high value that India has placed on both logic and experiments over blind faith or mere reliance on certain scriptures. So, Adi Shankaracharya, in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, he has written, even if hundreds of Shrutis are verses from the Upanishad. So he has written, even if 100 of Shruti says that the fire is cold and there is no light in fire, they cannot be accepted because they contradict real evidence that we are observing. So this shows how India valued empirical knowledge over unproven claims or mere writing on scriptures. To further understand India's historical view of experimentation, I will refer to a speech of Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi during the Golden Jubilee session of Indian Parliament in 15th August 1997. He emphasized that although today's narrative often suggests that science and experiment originated in the West, India has a rich tradition of scientific discoveries centuries before. He highlighted that 200, 300 years back, when West was still grappling with basic scientific ideas, India already has advanced knowledge. So Dr. Joshi cited Indian scientist Acharya P.C. Ray. Acharya P.C. Ray, he pointed out in 1662, and this was the year when the Royal Society of London was founded, that European philosophers were still debating very basic questions, fundamental questions, such as whether a dead fish is heavy or whether a live fish is heavy. This was the mindset of European philosophers. Meanwhile, in India, we had well-documented scientific advancement in different fields, like chemistry. If you see two notable textbook from the 13th century, Rasendra Chintamani, it was written by Ramachandra, and Rasprakash Sudhakar, it was written by Yashodhar. It details the author's experiments in chemistry. Say Ramachandra in Rasen Chintamani, he has stated that I have only included in this book what I have either personally experimented or proven under the guidance of my teachers. So these texts were already available and we were experimenting and learning. And this tradition of experimentation extended beyond chemistry. India's musical instruments were created through trial and experiment. Say, for example, Rishi Bharat's book, Natya Shastra. describes how Rishi Swati was Bharat's wife. While they were searching for water, they observed the sound which was created by raindrop, which was falling on lotus leaves of different sizes. So small size, different sound, larger size, different sound. So inspired by these natural sounds, when he returned to his ashram, he began experimenting with water and different materials. And eventually he created musical instruments like Mridang, Panav, Dardar Muraj, and so on. All these experiments shows that India has for long prioritized logic, prioritized proof over blind faith. We have had the freedom to explore, to experiment, and to express our thought for thousands of years, long before West embraced such practices. So it is very important to understand and teach India's rich scientific tradition, and this can instill a sense of self-confidence in younger generation. And it can free them from any feeling of inferiority that the knowledge has only originated on the West and then came to East. So we discussed about the logic, the views, perspective of logic and views of Western and Indian people. Now let us see the Western perspective of science and the Indian perspective of science, how they are looked on. So Carl Pearson, he has written the book Grammar of Science. He defined the role of science as an organization of fact, their arrangement, and their comparative significance. He highlighted that the key feature of scientific approach is to draw conclusions from personal experiences and at the same time remaining impartial. So in this sense, science involves a systematic process that includes inquiry, that includes experimentation, investigation, reasoning, and finally a conclusion. If you see the Encyclopedia Britannica, it states that the Latin word scientia, it means knowledge. So today, science refers to such vast knowledge that no single person can fully comprehend it. Scientific knowledge spans across a wide range from atomic particles to mental processes, from the birth of star to the death of star, to migration of birds, to the smallest organism, to massive galaxies, and so on, to the creation and even destruction of universe. Science also includes the study of living beings, their action, the forces that shapes their thought and behavior, and so on. So Western perspective of science is that science is divided into two categories: pure science and applied science. Pure science means exploration of pursuit of fundamental truth of the universe, discovery of law that govern the functioning of the universe. And applied science means focuses on using these laws to create and develop technologies, develop solutions and inventions to improve the standard of living. So in the West, applied sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, metallurgy, astronomy, mathematics, and subfield, they have emerged in the last few hundred years. What was the Indian perspective of science? In his book, Vaisheshik, in his book Vaisheshik, Rishi Kanad, he was considered as India's first nuclear scientist. He says that Drishtanam Drishta, Prajonanam Drishta Bhave Pragyo Budhay. meaning that the path of prosperity comes from personal experiment, which is either demonstrated for others or pursued deeper for further knowledge. Similarly, Rishi Gautam, in his book Nyaya Darshan, he outlines a 16-step scientific process for understanding everything, from the smallest particle to universe. So there are 16 steps to learn. He has discussed concept like prameya, that which must be known, then pramana, the tools they used to know. They emphasizes the importance of doubt, shanshay, in driving these investigation. So this is a complete 16-step process which involves hypothesis, using examples, cases to explore the truth and ultimately arriving at a conclusion. So the Indian approach to knowledge emphasizes a broader understanding. It holds that one must not comprehend only the visible world and the functioning of the visible world, but also the reasons behind the existence of the universe. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna mentioned that to truly understand the nature of Brahma, one must know the knowledge and as well as science. So he spoke on understanding the 5 basic elements: Jal, Thal, Vayu, Agni, Akash. But along with that, mind, man, intellect, buddhi, consciousness, chit, and ego, ahankar. These are supreme elements that he has talked about. Similarly, Rishi Kanad also includes earth, water, air. In fact, direction, mind, and spirit in the scope of what should be known. So in order to know, you have to not only study the 5 elements, but also mind, intellect, consciousness, ego, spirit, direction, and so on. So the ultimate goal of knowledge and science in India is thought to discover the reason for the world's existence and the governing laws. So ancient texts like Vedas, Upanishad, and other philosophical treatises, they provide reference to these explorations. They discuss the creation of the universe, how the order is maintained, and the laws that governs its maintenance. And when were these written? Thousands of years back. In the realm of applied sciences, India has long studied subjects like physics, chemistry, botany, agriculture, Ayurveda, metallurgy, and so on. Chandok Upanishad, there is a conversation between Narad and Sanat Kumar, and in that Upanishad, Narad lists a wide range of subject that he has studied. It includes the history, grammar, mathematics, ethics, and even music and dance. But he admits that he lacks spiritual knowledge. So these type of different subjects were existing thousands of years back in Indian scripture. Throughout Indian scriptures, there are numerous mentions of scientific and technological achievement. For example, the Upanishad, we read about Ashwini Kumar. He was able to regenerate Upmanyu's eyesight and revive Chandili's husband, and so on and so forth. So the moving cities of Tripurasur, the divine weapons of Pushpak, aircraft, all these suggest highly developed civilization. While these may seem like fables or poetic imagination today, but we cannot ignore a fact that these were thought and these were written in different Sanskrit manuscript, how they were thought, how they were imagined at that time and written. So India has long-lasting standing tradition of scientific research and study. There were many rishis. Bhrigu Rishi was one, Vashishta, Bharadwaj. They all dedicated their life into studying different subjects, including agriculture, mining, shipbuilding, aeronautics, military science, etc. In Bhrigu Samhita that Bhrigu Rishi has written, I am not going to read this, but this provides a comprehensive definition of architecture, how architecture should be. It covers everything from agriculture to hydrology to mining to mechanical engineering, everything. So for example, in defining agriculture, Bhrigu Rishi has written what encompasses a vast periphery of knowledge that is even difficult to imagine now. So Rishi Bhrigu, he described 10 primary science subjects that includes agriculture, water management, metallurgy, shipbuilding, town planning, etc. And then he lists 32 types of learning and 62 types of arts, from textiles to health to rocket science to forestry to air travel and so on. This vast knowledge once permeated every aspect of our life. Unfortunately, much of this has been lost over time. The manuscript has been scattered, they has been forgotten. However, few of them remain, and through their study, we still may uncover valuable knowledge that is existing. So the development of India as a unique society can be attributed to the ancient concept of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. This means that world is a one family. Many rishis like Shushrut, Varahamir, Bhaskaracharya, Aryabhatta, we will talk about few of them, Vagbhatta, they contributed to spread the knowledge of the highest value and kept India at the forefront of scientific and technological advancement. So science, due to immense advancement of knowledge, the application of science in daily life became a common factor in Indian society. When the entire Western world was in darkness, India rose and shined as a golden bird to the world. So the discovery of various scientific fact and the development of scientific concept give rise to new era that could keep India at the forefront of technology for centuries. And the advancement in science and technology has been the main reason for the development of human civilization. India has been contributing to the field of science and technology since ancient time. Even today, what we call traditional knowledge is actually based on scientific reasoning and scientific experimentation. Scientific discoveries in India trace back to the Vedic era. Aryabhatta, renowned mathematician, is credited with inventing zero. Again, here I would like to focus. Inventing zero means giving the value, the sign of zero. Zero existed before, zero as a number existed before that. Someone asked ki if Aryabhatta gave zero, then how the people were able to count Ravan has 10 head, or there were 100 Kauravas. No, the number was there, but the literary sign, that was not there. So ancient Indian scholars, they developed geometric theorems and they predated Pythagoras. Vedic, if you go through Vedic literature, there are concepts of squares, triangles, algebra, fractions, and so on. Even the Harappan civilization, they use decimal system which is evident in their weights and metric measure system. Rig Veda, it explains astronomy, it explains metaphysics. India's indigenous technologies, which are evident in Harappan town layout, were sophisticated. They were a marvelous form of engineering. They encompass water supply, traffic flow, air cooling architecture, and so on. Even the Indus Valley civilization pioneered plant towns with advanced drainage systems, sanitation, hydraulic engineering. And when was this? It was 3000 BC to 1500 BC, almost 5000 years back. So we developed advanced water management system which predated the Harappan era. We were able to develop very high quality iron and steel. They are the pillar of modern civilization. Ancient India was pioneer in developing the technology of producing rust-free iron. Even the metals from India was famous in contemporary Europe for sword making. So they used to buy metal from India. The famous iron pillar, which is there in Delhi, is a testimony of our technology. In Qutub Minar, it is there, and it is almost iron-free even today. And that iron pillar was made more than 400, 500 years back. Still no rust. That is a 6,400 kg iron pillar, which were actually made by 400 kg iron blocks. Imagine how these 400 kg iron blocks were glued one on top of each other. It is still sturdy. There is no damage to the thing. Similarly, Indian farming technology was very developed, very indigenously developed at that time, and it included soil testing, crop rotation, irrigation, crop storage methods. Very important. In physics, the concept of atom can be traced to Vedic times. So Parmanu, that is beyond atom, was considered to be the smallest particle, which cannot be divided further. Medicine, surgery, Ayurveda, which is possibly the oldest structured medical system, it details the ailment, the symptom, the diagnosis, the cures. Rishi Charak, Rishi Shushruth made significant contributions in this. Shipbuilding, shipping industry India was one of the major export industry till British dismantled it and formally banned it. The medieval Arab sailors, they used to purchase boat weight in India. Even the Portuguese, instead of buying from Europe, they used to obtain their boat from India. Some of the most sophisticated boats, the largest boats and ships were built in India and China. The compass and other navigation tools were already in use in India much before Europe. So using the expertise in science and maritime travel, Indians participated in the earliest known ocean-based trading system. So this is the wide range of subject that we were expert on. Now, I will go to the second part of my discussion today. Briefly, because we have limited time, we will discuss a few rishis, we should say doctors or scientists who have contributed sufficiently towards Indian literature. Shushruth, 6th century BC, almost 2,600 years back. He made numerous contributions in the field of surgery and is regarded as the father of surgery. He wrote the book Shushruth Samhita, where he explained 300 types of surgical processes, 120 types of surgical instrument, and categorized human surgical processes. Some of his contribution includes surgical demonstrations such as in making incisions, probing, extraction, and cauterization, tooth extraction, and so on. He also described procedure for removal of prostate gland and hernia surgery and so on. Even cesarean section. He has written in his book the complete procedure for that. He classified 6 types of dislocation, 12 types of fractures of different bones, 76 types of eye problems. Not only problems, their symptoms, prognosis, medical and surgical interventions, and so on. He also described a method to stitch the intestine using ant head as a stitching material. He detailed about 650 drugs in Sushmit Samhita, and these drugs were from animal, were from plants, and even minerals. So he has written extensively about children, about expectant mothers, about poisoning, first aid method, long-term treatment, and so on. So Sushmit Samhita was later translated into Arabic and later to Persian, and this contributed to the spread of Ayurveda beyond science. Similarly, there was Charak, Rishi Charak, or Charak Muni or Agnivesh. He was an ancient Indian philosopher, scholar. Traditional Ayurvedic medical system in India, it developed around 5,000 years ago. And Charak was believed to be born around 4th century, 1st to 4th century BC, although the exact date are not known. He wrote the book Charak Samhita. This is one of the foundational texts of classical Indian medicine and Ayurveda. The Charak Samhita covers various aspects of medicine, including the etiology, the diagnosis, treatment, and ethical consideration of the disease. Also, it discusses about various subjects: anatomy, physiology, Ayurvedic medicine, surgical techniques, use of minerals and metals in medicine, and so on. So Charak's approach towards medicine was more holistic. He focused on understanding the body as a whole, not disease as a single thing. He emphasized the balance, maintaining the balance between 3 doshas, Vat, Pitta, Kapha, and believed that diseases are caused by imbalance in these doshas. So his treatment relied to correct this balance through dietary changes or some herbs or lifestyle modifications or even detoxification and massages and so on. So his contribution towards Ayurveda was not only medical but also scientific, because he emphasized the significance of observation, experiment, and logical reasoning in medical practice. So Charak extensively studied the anatomy of human body, human organs. He estimated the number of teeth, and number of bones, and he told that it's 360 almost. He said that heart is the control center of the body, and the heart is connected to the rest of the body through 13 main tubes. And these tubes further divide into smaller tubes. And the nutrients are passed through these tubes throughout the body. And even the waste is taken out from these tubes. Charak also asserted that any blockage to these main tube could lead to disease or could lead to deformity in the body. So while Sushruta and Charak discuss similar topic, anatomy, physiology, medical treatments, there was one difference. Sushruta Samhita, the foundation of Sushruta Samhita is surgical practices. while Charak Samhita primarily focus on medical treatment. So medicine. Aryabhatta is the earliest known mathematician and astronomer from India, and his exact birthplace is not known, but he lived around 476 to 550 CE. Some people say that he was born in Patliputra in Magad, present-day Patna. Others suggest that Kerala is his birthplace, but he moved to Magad during the Gupta period. So Aryabhatta wrote two most important books, Aryabhatiya and Arya Siddhanta. Aryabhatiya he wrote at the age of 23. And this is his most renowned work. It is a comprehensive text on mathematics and astronomy. The mathematical part of Aryabhatiya, it covers arithmetic, algebra, trigonometry, topics like continued fraction, quadratic equation, sum of power series, and so on. Table of signs. So Aryabhatta is credited with at least writing 3 textbooks on astronomy, and his brilliance continues to astonish many mathematicians of the present era. So Aryabhatta famously proposed a method stating that by adding 4 to 100, multiplying the result by 8 and adding 62,000 and then divided by 20,000, the answer will be equal to the circumference of a circle of a diameter 20,000 units. This calculation comes down to 3.1416. This is very close to the actual value of pi, 3.1419. So can you imagine how much? Almost 1600 years, 1600 years back, he was able to calculate value of pi. He is also credited with the formulating the algebraic identity a plus b square. His second work, Arya Siddhanta, it deals with astronomical calculation, and Arya Siddhanta provides details on various astronomical instrument, the yantras, and so on. And Aryabhatta is actually he was able to calculate that the Earth rotates on its axis and the Earth orbits the Sun and the Moon orbits around the Earth. He calculated the position of the 9 planets and their relation with their rotation, orbit around the Sun. He had information about solar eclipses, lunar eclipse, day and night cycles, the geography of Earth, and so on. He calculated the length of a year to be 365 days. He was able to calculate the circumference of Earth to be 39,968 kilometers. This is very near to modern scientific calculation. Modern scientific calculation is 40,072. Just 100-kilometer difference. So India's first satellite, Aryabhatta, was named in his honor. This is a translation of Aryabhatiya, which was done by Walter Eugene Clark. He was a professor of Sanskrit at Harvard University, and it was done in 1930. It was published by the University of Chicago Press, where he translated complete Aryabhatiya of Aryabhatta. Similarly, Varahmir, he was also an Indian mathematician, and around 5th to 6th century, and he was born in near the Shipra river in Ujjain, and he was appointed as one of the 9 gems of Chandragupta Vikramaditya. So he was the Navratnas of Chandragupta Vikramaditya. So Varahmir even traveled to distant land, including Greece and all. He wrote 3 important books, Brihad Jataka, Brihad Samhita, and Panch Siddhantaka. So these are very important book for trigonometry. He devised different trigonometry formulas. Similarly, Panch Siddhanta, it describes the 5 principles which were prevalent before the time of Varahamihir, like Pauli Siddhanta, Romak Siddhanta, and so on. Along with this, he wrote 3 books on astrology, Laghu Jatka, Brihat Jatka, and Brihat Samhita. These covers subject like Vastu Shastra, plant medicine, and the nature and the art of construction, and so on. Brahmagupta, first to define 0 as a number with arithmetic rules. He defined operations involving 0, say a plus 0 is equal to a, or a minus 0 is equal to a multiplied 0 is equal to 0, and so on. So he stated that 0 divided by 0 is 0. His recognition of 0 as a number was revolutionary. He worked on negative into negative is equals to positive, negative into positive is equal to negative, and so on. He worked on many cyclic quadrilaterals, equations, and geometry as well. He authored the astronomy. In astronomy, he authored a textbook, Brahmaspudit Siddhant ka. So this is Brahmagupta Dwara Sfutit Siddhant. He explained eclipses very scientifically. He accurately described the planetary and spherical astronomy. Along, not only this, he contributed towards philosophical and epistemological contribution towards Indian science. Similarly, Bhaskara was Bhaskaracharya or Bhaskara II. He was born in 1114 CE near Vijayawada, and he directed the astronomical observatory at Ujjain, which was a very leading mathematical center at that time. Can you imagine? This time West was nowhere. We were having astronomical observatory and people used to study. His main work was Siddhant Shiromani, and it comprises 4 parts: Leelavati, Bij Ganit, Grah Ganit, or Goladhyay. So Leelavati is arithmetic, Bij Ganit algebra, Grah Ganit planetary mathematics, and Goladhyay spherical mathematics. He covered the principles of differential calculus and its applications to astronomical computations, while Newton and Leibniz, they are typically credited with the development of calculus. There is a compelling evidence showing that Bhaskar pioneered some of the fundamental calculation of principles of calculus much before Newton and Leibniz. So similarly, he was able to solve quadratic equations, cubic equations. He introduced the concept of positive and negative numbers and their operations. He was the first to state that if a finite number is divided by 0, the result is infinity. So the concept of infinity comes from. In astronomy also, he did a lot of work. He described Earth rotation. He studied the spherical trigonometry. He calculated the time required for Earth to orbit Sun as 365.2568 days. Modern accepted measurement is 365.256. Just a difference of mere 3.5 minutes. When did he get that? Almost more than 900 years back. Karanakutaha, which is a book on astronomical calculations, was written by him. And this is still used in making precise calendar. So that Panchang that we have, no? what is the principle of that panchang? That uses this Karun Kutulla. And that we can directly tell Magh Mas में किस दिन पूर्णिमा होगा in the year 3056. With on the basis of that panchang, we can tell easily. And how we can tell? That uses this particular book. So keeping all this in mind, the Department of Ministry of Education, they started Indian Knowledge System Division. Was established in October 2020 by the Ministry of Education. It is present in AICT headquarters. This is the website. You should look at it. It has been established to promote interdisciplinary research on all aspects of Indian knowledge system, and to preserve and disseminate Indian knowledge system for further research and societal applications. So it is actively engaged in spreading the heritage and traditional knowledge of our country in various areas, including art, literature, agriculture, basic sciences, engineering, technology, architecture, management, whatever, economics, and so on. It has large number of mission. I will not go into the detail of this, but it has large number of missions. It funds for programs. It funds for, it gives fellowship. It funds for workshops, and also it helps to establish IKS cell in universities. I will close my talk with this saying that Indian knowledge system, which is an integral part of Indian civilization, showcases remarkable contribution of the rishis, of the scientists in Indian science, medicine, and technology. Their profound intellect and cultural heritage has paved unique path for progress in various aspects of life, and National Education Policy 2020 aims to modernize and uphold this tradition, bridge the ancient wisdom with the knowledge, modern knowledge, make a blending, and embrace the Indian knowledge system in higher education. And this will signify the journey of knowledge, innovation, and enlightenment. It will also bridge the gap between tradition and modernity, and it will also nurture the new generation to capably lead with a deep appreciation for India's scientific, rich, traditional heritage. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please. Am I audible? Hello. Okay. So if there are any questions, comments, observation, suggestions, I will welcome. So you can drop questions on the chat box if you are muted.
So any questions from the participants? I'm now allowing the permission that participant can unmute themselves. आपके कोई प्रश्न हो तो आप पूछ सकते हो रिसोर्स पर्सन से। आपको अनुमति है कि आप अभी अनम्यूट कर सकते हो सभी लोग। किसी के कोई प्रश्न है, सवाल है, वो माननीय
Sir,
यस
hello, sir.
यस
Sir, it is very informative, sir, that in ancient knowledge, the more about we know that the like value of pi is more accurate or Earth revolving time of Earth revolving around sun. But about the more philosophical aspect, but in our মানে, in our children book or knowledge system or system, it is not, it is only only less focused, but it is more focused. I think, sir, please elaborate, sir.
Ms. Tripathi sir, Mondal ji, can you repeat your question? Tripathi sir, he is audible to you?
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible to me. But I think Tripathi sir, you can unmute yourself. Your mic is muted, sir.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. So, Sanjeev ji, could you repeat your question because I'm not able to get exactly आप कहना क्या चाहते हैं?
but my question ये है जो ये सब ancient India, the various knowledge, the accuracy of knowledge is like timely earth revolving the sound and more accuracy of the time of pi, the value of pi or invention of zero, but it is not more focused in our education system, but our
Right.
children are of less knowledge.
Not
It is
knowledge.
more focused.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, यू आर वेरी वेरी करेक्ट। और इसको हमारी बुक्स में आना चाहिए। इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम को टेक्स्ट बुक में एआईसीटी भी ला रही है, और हम लोग के सिलेबस में भी अभी देखिए नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में आईकेएस को इन्वॉल्व किया गया है सिलेबस में। जानकारी बच्चों के अंदर बहुत आवश्यक है। अन्यथा होता क्या है कि बहुत बार जब हम भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा की बात करते हैं तो ज्यादातर लोग सोचते हैं कि दिस इज मोर ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटीज एंड सोशल साइंस एंड समथिंग लाइक दैट। बट विज्ञान के क्षेत्र में भी हमारा योगदान उतना ही महत्वपूर्ण रहा है जितना महत्वपूर्ण अन्य विषयों में योगदान रहा है, और ये आजकल के बच्चों को जानना चाहिए। तो मेरे इस लेक्चर का ये प्रयास अवश्य था कि आप लोग टीचर है, आप सभी लोग टीचर है, आप लोग इसको जानेंगे तो आपके इस एफडीपी के लिए तो उपयोगी होगा, लेकिन शायद आप लोग अपने घर में कभी बात करेंगे, अपने बच्चे को बताएंगे, या वो अपने फ्रेंड को बताएंगे, तो धीरे धीरे इसके बीच इसके लिए जानकारी बढ़ेगी। सरकार के स्तर पर मैं आश्वासन देना चाहता हूं कि इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम को इस तरह के जो हमारे पास ज्ञान है उसको टेक्स्ट बुक में लाया जा रहा है और उसको टेक्स्ट बुक में जोड़ा जा रहा है। एक प्रश्न या उसको प्रश्न मेरा भी सरकार से था, जो कि किसी बैठक में मैंने पूछा कि जब हम लोग इसे भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा कह रहे हैं तो हम लोग इसे इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम क्यों कह रहे हैं? हम लोग को कहना चाहिए इंडियन नॉलेज ट्रेडिशन। That would have been better work because that is a parampara, that is a tradition, not a system. So still हम लोग का आईकेएस सेल काफी आगे बढ़ गया है, so that वो प्रश्न एक अलग चर्चा को जन्म देता है।
ओके सर, मेरे बच्चों को से यही पढ़ना है फर्स्ट इन इंडिया नॉलेज सिस्टम भाई इन साइंस में न्यूटन्स लॉ कोपर्निकस गैलीलियो ये पढ़ता है, लेकिन सुश्रुत में नहीं जानते हैं, बड़ा अमीर आर्यभट्ट नहीं जानते हैं।
इतना इतना कुछ है सुश्रुत, अभी तो हमने समय का अभाव था, नहीं तो फिर थोड़ा डिटेल में बताते। तो सुश्रुत, चरक, इन लोगों ने इतना माइन्यूटली डिफाइन किया है चीजों को। कभी सुश्रुत संहिता, चरक संहिता में देखिए, आजकल आप आर्किटेक्चर की बात कीजिए, हमारे हजारों साल पहले जो मंदिर बने हैं, दे आर स्टिल सो मच आर्किटेक्चरली नाइसली मेड कि अभी तक वो मजबूत खड़े हैं। आज कुछ रोड बनती है, कुछ कुछ घर बनता है, कुछ साल बाद उसकी हालत खराब हो जाती है। सो वाई वी
ओह, हाँ,
हैव
50 years
लॉट।
ड्यूरेशन।
यस। और कोई प्रश्न किसी के पास?
थैंक यू सर।
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes, please.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, I'm
Come
Dr.
in.
Vijaya Kadam. Sir. Uh, your lecture was so informative. In my mind, there is a question. Why that is the Charak Samhita or the Sushruta is still today, it was, means it was not implemented so effectively.
See, Dr.
It was
Vijay,
in Ayurveda or
I
like
got your
this, we
point.
know that. Yes, but
I got your point. So, in the past 150 years, we have been taught to not feel proud of our knowledge. We have been taught that we were not having any ancient knowledge. We have been made, our mind have been made in a way that we, for everything, we have to look to the West. But actually it was not earlier. So these textbook should come to forefront, and this is one of the important function of this IKS cell. If you go towards that website, you will find that IKS cell promotes finding authors who work on IKS and who have knowledge and who can translate this also, because Satchurchandra, Charak Samhita are in Sanskrit, in translation also. Then it will be brought towards to more public.
okay.
And those are all part of mission of IKS cell. Please go through the website, that will provide you all the detail of IKS cell.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you. Means Western, because of the Western culture or the Western knowledge,
We have
it
been
was,
taught not to feel proud.
yeah.
Otherwise, we had my point of discussion today was only to show that 400 years back, West was nowhere, and thousands of years back, where we were. Let me give you one small example. When Galileo, he said ki Prithvi is circle,
Yes.
and it revolves around sun. Then he was persecuted. What was that time? 1500 something, just 450 years back.
Yeah.
But in Rig Veda, which is written thousands of years back, there is a mention of Bhugol. Bhugol. So thousands of years back, we knew that Bhu is gold. Bhu is not chokor. So that is written thousands of years back. How did we knew?
Yeah.
We were having information at that time. So these things our generation should know, our new generation who is coming should know that we had existing knowledge. We have been made not to feel proud. But with time, the information will be shared, and new people will come up, and they will have knowledge about the tradition glory that we had. And this is not only about the talk of remembering our glory. हमारे पिताजी राजा थे, अरे पिताजी राजा थे, ठीक है, आगे क्या? That is also a part. So Indian knowledge system cell, IKS cell, is also working not only to remember history, We were this, we have done this, we have done that. But how we can use these to improve our next generation or do more scientific progress? That is another objective of IKS.
Yes, sir. It is that is the Ajibai's Batwa. In Ajibai's Batwa, there are also some ancient things, that is the turmeric or
Yes, everywhere. Ayurveda, from Ayurveda to yoga to everything.
that is from Ayurveda, I think. Yes, sir.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, Vedic mathematics is also this part ancient.
Okay, coming to Vedic mathematics, it was developed around 1600, by, I'm forgetting his name, by a rishi only. Vedic mathematics, now it is sold by different coachings like trick mathematics or fingertips mathematics. But actually, what is that? That is Vedic mathematics, plain Vedic mathematics, which already existed in our knowledge. It was established by, I'm skipping my mind. He was also a pujari, a rishi. He developed around 450 years back Vedic mathematics.
Yes, any more questions?
Good afternoon, Timir sir.
G.
See, the acceptance towards Indian knowledge system is always going to be a challenge unless we move from system to heritage. So if we talk about Indian knowledge heritage, we are going to take pride in our heritage because there's a tendency of human nature that when you say heritage, it is easily accepted and assimilated. Rather than when we say it is a system or a tradition, there is always going to be opposition to that. So in case, some time back also during our sessions, we had one gentleman from Madhya Pradesh. Even to him also, I had put forth my view. It's just a view. Since if it is possible, can it be renamed as Indian knowledge heritage? Because, or
I think
even if you call it as, sorry to interrupt you, sir, but even if it is called as Indian heritage also, or for that matter, Indian knowledge heritage, there will be wider and easier acceptance to that particular concept. And once it is easily acceptable to us who teach, it can be easily forwarded to the students so that an interest can be created. The bottom line is the interest needs to be created in the Indian knowledge heritage. That's
very
all
valid
from my
point.
side.
Very valid point. I can drop this to the authorities sometimes when I'm in some meeting in Delhi, but I'm not the person who will take decision. But yes, your suggestion makes a lot of sense. I think next time when I'm in Delhi in some meeting, I'll definitely drop this.
I mean, we are having so much good of ourselves, but only thing is that because of certain words, it is not being accepted. It is as simple as that.
Got it. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for the
Thank you.
suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions? So if there are no questions, we can propose a vote of thanks. So on behalf of UGC Malviya Mission Teachers Training Center, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, my special thanks to Professor Tripathi sir for being here, sparing his valuable time, and enlightening us on Bharatiya Gyan Parampara with the angle from science. We are really thankful to you, sir, and hope that there will be a long-term association of yours with this UGC Malviya Mission Teachers Training Centers. Thanks a lot, sir.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul. Thank you. And I'm pleased
Yes.
to be